The chief flight attendant's voice sliced through the hush of the first-class lounge at London's Heathrow, her tone as crisp as the starched collar of her uniform. "Sir, I'll ask you one last time. Please return to your assigned seat in economy, or I'll be forced to call security." Her words, though wrapped in professional courtesy, dripped with a cold finality that made heads turn. Seated in 1A, a tall, impeccably dressed black man met her gaze with a calm that seemed to slow time itself. His name was Elijah Carter, and he wore his composure like armor. "I assure you, I'm in the right seat," he replied, his voice low and even, carrying the weight of someone who had weathered storms far fiercer than this. The other, passengers mostly white, mostly men in tailored suits, watched, with a mixture of curiosity and discomfort. Some exchanged glances, others buried their faces in newspapers or phones, but all felt the tension thickening the air. Elijah's presence was an anomaly in this world of privilege. He wore a charcoal suit, a simple silver watch, and carried nothing but a slim briefcase and a battered paperback. His hair was cropped close, his posture relaxed but unyielding. No one, not even the flight crew, suspected that this unassuming man was the billionaire owner of the very airline they were flying skyward Atlantic. The chief attendant, Victoria Hayes, was a woman who prided herself on order. Her blonde hair was pulled into a severe bun, her blue eyes sharp behind rimless glasses. She had just finished fussing over the needs of Lord and Lady Pembroke, the airline's most loyal VIPs, when she noticed Elijah. Something about him, his skin, his quiet confidence, the lack of a visible brand set her on edge. She stepped closer, lowering her voice, but not her guard. "Sir, first class is reserved for our priority guests. If you've been upgraded by mistake, I'll be happy to escort you to your proper seat." Elijah offered his boarding pass, the name Elijah Carter and seat 1A glowing on the screen. Victoria barely glanced at it. "I know all our regulars," she said, her tone icy. "I don't recall seeing you before." A few rows back, a white-haired man in a navy blazer, Sir Malcolm Grant, a retired judge, watched the exchange with a frown. He'd seen enough of the world to recognize prejudice when it reared its head, but he hesitated, unwilling to challenge the unspoken rules of this rarefied space. Across the aisle, a young woman in a red dress whispered to her companion, "Probably some lottery winner. They let anyone in these days." Her words, meant to be private, carried just enough to sting. Victoria straightened, her authority bolstered by the silent approval of the cabin. "If you can't produce your membership card, I'll have to ask you to leave. Priority passengers have credentials." Elijah's eyes didn't waver. "My ticket is valid. That's all the proof I need." The silence grew oppressive. Some passengers shifted uncomfortably, others pretended not to notice. The unspoken consensus was clear: Elijah didn't belong. Victoria's lips curled into a tight smile. "I'll call security." Before Elijah could respond, a voice cut through the tension. "Perhaps you should check the manifest again, Victoria." It was Sir Malcolm, his tone gentle but firm. "Mistakes happen, but it would be a shame to embarrass a guest without cause." Victoria bristled, but the challenge forced her to retreat. She stalked to the galley, muttering under her breath. The other attendants exchanged nervous glances, unsure whether to intervene. Minutes later, Victoria returned, her face flushed. She carried a tray of drinks, serving each passenger with exaggerated care except Elijah. When he politely requested a glass of water, she ignored him, moving on as if he were invisible. The slight did not go unnoticed. A few passengers looked away, ashamed. Others watched, waiting for Elijah to react. He remained still, his dignity intact. Then, as Victoria passed by again, she accidentally tipped the edge of the tray, sending a cascade of water over Elijah's lap. The clatter of glass drew gasps. Victoria's voice rang out, loud enough for all to hear. "You should be more careful, sir." Elijah met her gaze, his voice steady. "Respect is not a privilege, it's right." The words hung in the air, a quiet rebuke that made Victoria's cheeks burn. For a moment, it seemed the confrontation would end there. But then, in a flash of anger, Victoria did the unthinkable. She slapped Elijah across the face. The sound echoed through the cabin, stunning everyone into silence. Phones appeared, recording the aftermath. Elijah did not flinch. He looked Victoria in the eye and said, "You've just made a grave mistake." Panic flickered in Victoria's eyes as she realized the gravity of her actions. The passengers, once complicit in their silence, now turned on her. Sir Malcolm stood, his voice ringing with authority. "You've assaulted a passenger in front of witnesses. There will be consequences." At that moment, the captain's voice crackled over the intercom, announcing an emergency landing at Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris. The plane descended in tense silence, every eye on Elijah. As the aircraft taxied to a halt, 2 French police officers boarded. The senior officer approached Elijah. "Monsieur Carter, we have received a report of an assault. Would you like to press charges?" Elijah nodded. "Yes. I was assaulted and humiliated in front of witnesses on my own airline." A ripple of shock ran through the cabin. Victoria's face was drained of color. "Your own airline?" she stammered. Elijah stood, his presence commanding. "I am Elijah Carter, owner and CEO of Skyward Atlantic, and I will not tolerate discrimination on my flights." The officers turned to Victoria, reading her rights as they placed her in handcuffs. The passengers watched, some in shame, others in awe. The young woman in red wept quietly, her earlier words echoing in her mind. As Victoria was led away, Elijah addressed the cabin. "Silence in the face of injustice is complicity. Today, we witness the cost of that silence, but we also have the power to change." The story did not end with Victoria's arrest. News of the incident spread across social media, sparking outrage and debate. Elijah held a press conference announcing sweeping reforms, mandatory anti-bias training, a 24/7 dignity hotline, and zero tolerance for discrimination. Within days, other airlines followed suit. Passengers and crew alike shared stories of prejudice and courage, inspired by Elijah's example. The industry began to change, one flight at a time. On his next journey, Elijah boarded a Skyward Atlantic flight to New York. The new chief attendant, a young black woman named Simone, greeted him with a warm smile. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Carter. It's an honor to serve you." Elijah smiled, feeling the weight of history shift. In the row ahead, a white boy and his father watched, the boy's eyes wide with admiration. When he asked for a second glass of juice, Simone brought it with a cookie and a wink. "For our future pilots," she said. As the plane soared above the clouds, Elijah looked out the window, his reflection mingling with the endless sky. He thought of the journey of dignity, justice, and the courage to stand alone. And he knew that sometimes one voice was enough to make the whole world listen.